Hello students, how are you? Hope you all are fine at your home. Today I am here to teach you history for class 10th and today's topic is the First War of Independence 1857.
So student, let's start the first chapter, that is the First War of Independence 1857. In this chapter, we have to complete two basic points, that is the causes and the consequences of the revolt of 1857. When I am talking about the revolt of 1857, these the thing are same. The First War of Independence as well as the revolt of 1857 both are same. The process of British conquest of India and the consolidation of British rule was accompanied by resentment among the Indians. Till 1857, people who suffered from British policy revolted against them, but they did not pose a serious challenge to the British, as these rebellions were local, scattered, and isolated, and it was easier for the Britishers to crush them and to control them. Now, first time the War of 1857 hailed the first war of independence because in this movement millions of peasants, artisans, and soldiers participated, which shook the British government to its very foundation. That means, first time all the people of all the community who are suffering a lot from the British policies, they revolted against the British on the same time, and this created the problem for the British to crush them. The first 100 years of British rule in India, that is from 1757 to 1857, were marked by the British conquest and rapid expansion of their dominion in India. The combined effects of British expansionist policies, economic exploitation, and administrative changes adversely affected all the segments of Indian societies. First of all, the ruling class were disposed of their powers, means all the powers were being taken away from the ruling class by imposing many policies, which I will explain you later on. Peasantry were deprived of its land rights, artisans lost their livelihood, upper classes of Indian society annoyed because of their exclusion from the well paid higher post in the administration. That means all the higher posts were reserved for the British only. The company's Indian soldiers were discontent with their low pay, hard life, and the ill treatment meted out to them by the British officers. Thus, by 1857, conditions were ripe for a mass uprising of the First War of Independence. Now, what were the causes for the First War of Independence? It has been divided into five parts. Basically, first is political cause, second socio-economical, socio-religious cause, third is economic cause, fourth is military cause, and the fifth one is immediate cause. Now, when we are talking about political cause, the first one is the policy of expansion. The British tried to expand their political powers in India by four ways, that is, by outright wars, by subsidiary alliances, by using the doctrine of lapse, and on the pretext of alleged misrule. By outright wars. To expand their territorial power in India, the British wages many wars. The Battle of Buxar, that is being fought in 1764 between the East India Company and Mir Qasim, the Nawab of Bengal, in which the British got the master of Bengal, Bihar, and Odisha. With the success of this war, they fought another war, that is called Anglo-Mysore War, in 1767 and 1799, in which they annexed Mysore state. After that, they fought the Third Anglo-Maratha War, in which they got the territorial control of Maratha Empire. Then they fought the Sikh War in 1849, in which they got all the control of Punjab territory. Then from 1823 to 1856, the British annexed Sindh, Assam, Arakan, and Pegu in Myanmar. The second policy was the subsidiary alliances. This was introduced by Lord Wellesley. Under this system, some Indian states were brought under the British control without actually annexing them, as Indian ruler accepted the British as the supreme power and surrendered their foreign relation to the company. By 1856, particularly, all the Indian states had either been annexed or had entered into alliances with the company. Now, the third point is by using the doctrine of lapse. The doctrine of lapse policy is the basically a very important policy which has been introduced by Lord Dalhousie, the Governor General of India, according to which if the ruler died without a natural heir, the throne will be annexed by the British company. Adopted son cannot inherit the throne, he will be the owner of private property only. So, when the ruler of Jhansi died in 1853, leaving no natural heir, the widowed Rani Lakshmibai was pensioned and their adopted son, whose name was Anand Rao, was not recognized as a lawful successor to the throne. The other prominent state which became victim to this policy were Satara, Jaipur, Sambalpur, Udaipur and Nagpur. Now, the fourth point is on the pretext of alleged misrule. Now, what is the meaning of alleged? Alleged means blaming without any proof. So, in 1856, Lord Dalhousie annexed Awadh to the company dominion on the pretext of alleged misrule, according to which it means that it is not properly managed and justified the annexation of Awadh on the pretext of the good of the government. This caused resentment among the Indians in general and Awadh in particularly. Now, the second main point is disrespect shown to Bahadur Shah. Bahadur Shah Zafar, the Mughal ruler, was under the protection of the company and received a pension from the British. But in 1849, Lord Dalhousie announced that successor of Bahadur Shah Zafar would not be permitted to use Red Fort and required to shift to the place near the Qutub Minar. In 1856, Lord Canning announced that after the death of Bahadur Shah, his successors would never not be allowed to use the imperial titles with their names, which hurt the feelings of Muslims. And the third point is treatment given to Nana Sahib and Rani Lakshmibai. Nana Sahib was the adopted son of Bajirao II, the last Peshwa. The British refused to grant Nana Sahib the pension they were paying to Bajirao II because Nana Sahib was the adopted son of Bajirao II and he is also suffering from the policy of doctrine of lapse. Because of this, the British refused to grant Nana Sahib the pension they were paying to Bajirao II and forced him to live at Kanpur, far away from his family seat at Pune. This was widely resented in the Maratha region. Rani Lakshmibai of Jhansi became a bitter enemy of the British as her adopted son was not accepted as the heir to the throne. Now, the fourth point is absentee sovereignty of the British. It means that India was being ruled by the British government from England. This was resented by the Indians as they thought that India's wealth was being drained to England and not utilized for their wealth. The second cause was socio-religious cause. First was interference with social custom. Some social reforms introduced by British to improve the condition of people like the abolition of sati in 1829, the introduction of Widow Remarriage Act in 1856 and the opening of Western education to girls were not welcomed by the masses as the feeling of people were not taken into consideration. The second cause was the policy of racial discrimination. The British officers were rude and arrogant towards the Indians and ill-treated and insulted Indians as they believed that they were superior to Indians, which hurt the feeling of Indian people. Third one is apprehension about modern innovations. As we know that the innovations basically started in England or in the European country, which was later on introduced to Indian people. The people were suspicious of introduction of modern innovations like railways and telegraphs. They believed that the British has introduced such practices to defy their caste and religion. Fourth was law of property. The Religious Disabilities Act of 1850 changed the Hindu law of property. That means it enabled a convert from Hinduism to other religion to inherit the property of his father. The Hindu regarded this as an incentive to give up one's religious faith. Now, the third cause was the economic causes. The exploitation of economic resources is the basic economic cause. Agricultural India was made an economic colony to serve the interest of industrial England. That means the Britishers forced the Indian people to grow the crops which is been required for their industries which has been set up in their own countries. Indians were forced to export at cheap rates raw material like raw cotton and raw silk, and was made to accept ready-made British goods either duty-free or at nominal duty rates. The Indian handmade goods were unable to compete with the cheaper machine-made British product. This ruined the Indian industry, deprived the artisans of their income, and reduced the avenues of employment for laborers. The second one is the drain of wealth. The transfer of wealth from India to England, for which India got no proportionate economic returns, is called the drain of wealth. Means the shifting of money from our country to England. Till the Battle of Plassey, that is been fought in 1757, the European traders used to bring gold into India to buy Indian cotton and silk, but later they stopped getting gold and began purchasing raw material from the surplus revenue of Bengal. That means the money they have collected in the form of taxes and revenue, they utilize that money to buy the raw material from Indian territory. Third one, the decay of cottage industries and handicrafts. Heavy duty on Indian silk and cotton textile in Britain and the disappearances of their traditional patrons and buyers destroyed Indian industries. The fourth one is poverty and famines. British economic exploitation decade of indigenous industries, high taxation, and the drain of wealth reduced the Indians to extreme poverty, which resulted in numerous famines between 1765 and 1857. The British government did nothing to lessen people's misery. They don't took any step for the welfare of the Indian peoples. Now the fourth one is military causes. Ill treatment of Indian soldiers. Despite the fact that Indian soldiers were as efficient as their British counterparts, they were poorly paid, ill fed, and badly housed. All the higher posts were being reserved for the Britishers, and all the lower posts were being allotted to Indian soldiers. Second one is the General Service Enlistment Act, according to which it has been traditional belief that the Brahmin and the Muslims were not been allowed to cross the sea, but the British Parliament passed the General Service Enlistment Act in 1856, according to which the Indian soldiers could be sent overseas on duty. The Brahmin soldiers saw in this a danger to their caste. Now, third one is bleak prospect of promotions. All the higher position is in employment were reserved for the British, irrespective of their performances. The future of the Indian soldier bleak without changes, without chance of promotion. Means all the time, although they were being capable, but they are not having the right, or they don't have the chance to get promotion in their uh, post. Fourth one, deprivation of alliances. Indian soldiers were required to serve in areas away from their homes without extra payment and additional allowances. The Post Office Act of 1854 withdrew the privilege of free postage enjoyed by the sepoys, which adversely affected the service condition of the sepoys. The fifth cause, that is the immediate cause, became the turning point of this revolt. In 1856, the British authority introduced the new type of rifle that is known as Enfield rifle. The cartridges used in these rifles were said to be greased with the fat of cows and pigs. The grease paper of the cartridge had to be bitten off with the teeth before loading them in the rifle. The use of these cartridges angered both the Hindu as well as the Muslim sepoy. So, both the Hindu and Muslim soldiers refused to use these cartridges and staged an uprising when they were forced to use them. So, students, hope you all understood the causes of revolt of 1857. Rest we will discuss in next video. Till then, bye bye.